Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Night Storm Gang podcast. I am Jason Elia. We got Pierce Walker and John Marco tonight. So where do we want to start?
Dude, all right.
We both have half a mustache.
Half a mustache. Yep.
Well, Marco has half of a man beard, but you know.
Yeah, you're still rocking that, huh?
Thoughts on VP? Oh yeah, man, it's going all the way. I actually shaved yesterday, so it's a little cleaner now.
All right. So yes, thoughts on VP, I guess, right? Like the elephant in the room. So this surprised not too many people. Certainly didn't surprise me, Kamala Harris. But yeah, speaking strategically, let alone the whole point of is she going to be a good VP? All right, that's secondary because this is a race first and foremost, right? Speaking strategically, it garnered no vote that he didn't already have. California could the Democratic Party could nominate a literal potato, and California would vote for the Democrat potato, right? So California was already going Democratic. Biden already has the so-called black vote, right? He already has the feminist vote. Like, there's no vote that Kamala Harris brings in that he didn't already have. So from that strategic sense, it kind of seems like something colossally stupid, to be frank. Oh, you like her? I haven't gotten into why I don't like her.
Well, we just lost John Marco for some reason, but he could have he could have done worse. There are worse Democratic candidates out there that he could pick for VP and so on and so forth. And I'm of the opinion of Kamala's pretty cool and everything, as a senator. I mean, I'm not the most excited human being about her as a vice president or anything. At the time she was elected, she was the right person, to be elected from California because she could flip-flop to Republican, just like that. And, but she was going to vote party lines, on major stuff. So she gave us that, leeway and that look of, being bipartisan and everything. So I liked her as a senator for that reason only. But, plus she...
What about her has come across as bipartisan to you?
What about her has come no, she'll flip-flop on certain issues military spending and all this other stuff. She's not super, she's not like a hardcore neo-lib. So,
Yeah.
She'll flip-flop on healthcare, she'll flip-flop on military spending, she'll flip-flop on, a bunch of other things.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite call the willingness to say whatever you want to hear to be a positive attribute.
At the time she was elected, it was.
Well, I guess we'll disagree. I like integrity a little bit. That being said, yes, I do agree there are worse people. And actually, we got Greek Yang. She's prepared to do the job. She understands the need to build an economy from the bottom up by giving cash to people through expansion of ATC, first cousin of UBI. So, bright things, right? Nobody is entirely bad, okay? And I will flat out say, I don't like Kamala Harris. I'll stick to that. That being said, I can also appreciate some good things about her, such as how she's completely come around on the concept of UBI. And I don't know if she's downright embraced it under the term UBI, but she's advocated for $2,000 a month to every adult American citizen for the UBI, which sounds a lot like UBI. So she certainly has positive attributes. And quite frankly, as someone to work with, if she likes you, she's going to be incredibly loyal to you. Anybody that's close to her will speak virtually only positive things about her because she is very loyal and kind to the people that are around her. You can see how she interacts with Andrew Yang off camera. She's kind of like a maternal figure almost, as if Andrew Yang is literally part of her family. And I have the full expectation that that's how she extends her treatment to everyone else. So Kamala Harris, not entirely a bad person. She has good attributes. I can still be very dissatisfied with the VP pick, despite some of those positive attributes. What I would have liked to have seen was, I kid you not, Condoleezza Rice. All right, a Republican black female. That would have been a sign of I am here to bring back the nation together, which is ostensibly the entire reason Joe Biden's running, right? To be that compromised, peaceful candidate, return to normalcy. I would have loved to have seen Condoleezza Rice as the VP because she also has far more understanding of how the executive branch at the national level and international levels runs.
But you also have to have a VP that you can depend on to vote your way if the Senate is tied.
Well, I think she would actually probably still stick with the commander-in-chief on most things. She strikes me very much as a loyal individual. And although she's a Republican, she's not like a Trump Republican. All right. I dare you to find something positive she's ever said about Trump. I dare it. she's not that kind of Republican.
Yeah.
But anyway, welcome back, John Marco.
Did you get everything fixed?
Yeah, sorry about that. It seems I'm having some Wi-Fi problems. That's what I was experiencing earlier. I thought it was a thing with StreamYard because I saw Pierce drop out like twice and all of us drop out. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But I should be back for now. But just quickly, my thoughts on it in terms of the decision to pick her. Some friends of mine put it very made a good observation where people the center right that might be a bit hesitant on the current defund the police thing might be more willing to vote for her considering her time as attorney general, while at the same time it's going to be interesting to see how Trump handles her, and I guess in a way Mike Pence handles her in the debates on her record as AG, considering the Trump administration is running on a very pro law and order, quote unquote, thing right now, essentially. But yeah, aside from that, I don't think there's anyone that was already not going to vote for Trump changing their mind, personally. And a good thing to note is I shared this on social media previously, but for the progressives, she's voted 92+% of the time the same as Bernie Sanders on basically 92% of things, which is
I'm aware.
A sign. Voting records do matter, people. There is, of course, a difference between what people say versus what people do.
They matter to me.
But in this case,
voter.
You both messed up on that.
Oh, sorry.
What was that, Pierce? You broke up.
Yeah. I said the voting record matters to me, and it matters to me, but it doesn't really matter to the average voter.
Well, I like the fact that she doesn't take shit from Hillary, so
Yes.
That's a huge pro.
I got the gist of it. You were cutting up there for a bit, but I got the gist of what you were saying. And then in terms of the cultural aspect, it shows that we all know it was going to be a female selection for a while, and people are saying, yeah, it goes to show that Biden is willing to have someone on his side that's going to hold him accountable on certain social issues like race and gender, which I think is very important. As much as I feel there was a lot of weight on the symbolism of a selection like this, I do feel that Kamala has the credentials enough to back up to make, plausible changes on the party's platform and how they want to move the Democratic Party moving forward. Because that was my main concern when Biden was I'm going to select a woman, person of color, perhaps, or vice president. Like I understand the want for that in this particular moment in cultural time. But just because someone fits literally a physical criteria doesn't mean they'll get the job done. And not to discredit that and what they were wanting, even for in any way. So with Harris, it might be a balance of both of those things as best as they could.
I do like how Harris is a younger politician, relatively speaking. That's an asterisk that needs to be out. But relatively, like her mindset, you can tell by the way she, walks and talks. She definitely, and the first time when Congress grilled the tech companies, you can tell that she has a much different mentality than the old guard. She is very much an establishment politician. In fact, she had more endorsements during the race from Democratic politicians than Joe Biden did. Yeah. So she is establishment to the core. It's like you have to be able to work with people, so that's not automatically a bad thing. But I'm not a fan of the party for party's sake, and you don't generally get those endorsements unless you're someone that just toes the party line by the large part. I like people to apply problem solving and integrity to solutions rather than just, oh hey, this is how the party wants it, and I scratch my back and you scratch my back and maybe I'll scratch your back later. But I'm a little jaded, having worked for the government for a few years.
Oh, also, I just noticed Megan hopped in. Hey, Megan, what's up? Love you.
Yeah.
We need someone from Yang Gang Book Club on here, so get to work on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, there are worse picks, and I would have liked to see Tammy Duckworth maybe in there, but it is what it is.
I think Tammy Duckworth would have been a far better choice. I also think that she would have captured more votes that would go Joe Biden's way. Not only as as a capable vice president, do I think she'd be a better choice, but also as a more strategic choice.
I just think she's a fucking badass.
Yeah, she's a better.
If this wasn't mentioned while my internet had problems, she is one of the 3 senators that is proposing emergency cash payments directly to people retroactively several months. Next to Bernie Sanders and another senator who I'm blanking out right now. But there's things, those are little things you have to pay attention to that go a long way, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're in the middle of a freaking pandemic, so it's just one of those things where we just kind of have to take what we can get at this point and fight for more. And we got Kamala, and we're gonna do our best for her, like we did for Andrew, hopefully, and get her elected. She's
I
a net
do
positive.
think that a Biden Kamala Harris ticket is going to be far better than a Trump Pence ticket. There's no contest from.
Kamala's gonna destroy Pence and
Sorry.
Oh, I said, Kamala's going to destroy Pence in any debate if they're able to get a vice presidential debate on the books. Kamala's going to rip him from his wife's tit and just beat the ever loving shit out of that motherfucker. And this is going to be the first time, when he was in Indiana, it's going to be the first time we can't be racist on stage because he's on a national level and not a state level where they support racism. So,
yeah, the debates are going to be quite interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot better than watching a Trump-Biden debate. This will be the first time in history people are tuning into the vice presidential debates instead of
Yeah, and and I think it's important. While we all understand that Joe Biden is significantly older and there are concerns about his age and everything, let's not forget that Trump was the oldest person ever sworn into office.
Oh shit! Really?
That's factually true, and he was, I believe, 70 at the time of inauguration, which is the oldest ever since, I believe, Reagan, if I'm not mistaken. And now he'll be, we'll have someone that's almost 3/4 of a century old, possibly, of course, I should say, in office again. Is that something? I'm just surprised that there isn't as equal concern on Trump as there is on Biden, because mental degeneration can happen as you get older at any stage, and at once it happens to at any degree. Things can become a slippery slope very fast. So.
Yep. By the way, John Marco, you getting some love from the crowd.
Kat, what's up?
And you know what, Kat? Fortunately, I believe you're right. It looks like Biden's gonna win.
We can only hope.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you just tuned in. We were just talking about, Pierce was mentioning how she likes how Kamala's younger, a Democrat with an asterisk. Comparatively speaking.
Do you think we'll ever see a president elected again that was as young as Kennedy?
I mean, how young was Kennedy? 43, if I think I recall?
No. Something like that.
Yeah, Kennedy was 43.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm slam dunking these ages.
Yeah, are we ever going to see someone that young or possibly younger in office ever again? Or was that a freak occurrence? Does the nation automatically just turn to geriatric old men?
I mean, you have to also remember, though, that when the Constitution was laid out, a minimum age of 35 at the time was damn, I'm going to have this very old, wise person, because the life expectancy back then was extremely much lower than it is right now. So if you were pushing 35, 45, then you consider the old wise villager, old wise village elder of the town.
You for an age limit for president?
I believe
that'd be something awesome to have in the Constitution. You can't be president if you're older than 60.
No.
I mean, I would kind of treat it like the debate around driver's license right now. Once you reach a certain age, you should have more frequent cognitive tests to make sure you're fit to physically handle a 2-ton machine going 60 miles an hour. That's something I'm personally for, because I think it's just an obvious safety measure. But in terms of putting a limit on it, I don't think so. I think that's mostly for the voters to decide.
If you can't figure out how to log into YouTube to watch WAP, then.
Yeah, but that's just more on the educational side of things and educating our Congress people to have a certain aptitude towards things.
So I would caution against going the route of, mental aptitude tests and whatnot. In fact, that's actually what we used by states in the United States used as Jim Crow laws to deny blacks the ability to vote. They would come up with tests and be like, oh, well, you know what? You're not literate, so you can't vote, or something along those lines. I would very strongly actually caution against going that route. If the government is in the position to be able to say that you have to pass this criteria, that you have to pass this test that I decide, that I wrote, that I adjudicate, that I evaluate, then I'm able to deny you the ability to contest it, quite frankly. So, no.
I don't think we need a test. I think we just need an age limit. Or otherwise, at the rate we're going, we're going to end up with a first 100-year-old president.
Well, theoretically, the public is supposed to be smart enough to decide, oh, hey, that person is clearly not mentally fit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Better
look at the fact that the public's not always given a choice. I mean, literally, right now we're being put up, and there's freaking Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Both of them are freaking 89 years old or some shit like that. Both of them don't know how to use YouTube. Before you got to Iowa, I went to see Joe Biden in Fort Dodge with someone and asked him, about Andrew Yang's policy on education for people with autism. He's like, oh, autism is an after-school program we must save, and I promise we will get the funding to put it back after school and help parents, And I'm like, okay, please move along now.
Yeah.
I
just told myself I really hope he was talking about the arts. I hope he misunderstood me and he's talking about arts.
Yeah, I mean, going into both of your points, Pierce, I do agree that on a legal level, that mandate shouldn't be there. But I think it would be good of people, especially if something like your age is of concern, to proactively take maybe a cognitive test. So to give people that assurance, essentially. I do agree that it shouldn't be a mandated legal thing. Absolutely. And Jason, I do understand that, there is concern, especially in today's culture, whereas before, if you were born in a feudal farm in 1300 and you pass 100 years, life is still the same, generation after generation. But, as with today's modern society, if you were born in 1900 and then go to 1950, sure, there's a lot of change. If you go from 1950 to just 20 years later and then less and less time over that, things are changing exponentially. I think an important factor to consider right now, especially given that, the current frontrunners, the current candidates are of an older generation, is their ability to listen and understand the change, that the world is changing rapidly, and their willingness to listen to other people.
Well, I mean, even for someone like my age, I'm 35 because I'm pretty sure I'm the oldest out of the three of us. I'm 35. I was born in 85, and we've gone from literally a cassette tape that played music off of ribbon to a shiny metal disc that looks like it's out of Star Trek to freaking something called a megabyte or terabyte or whatever the fuck music is stored on in an MP3 now. That's in my phone, available from the cloud. I mean, I'm 35 and I'm this has all happened in the time that, from the time that I crawled my way out of my mother's cocaine-riddled vagina and, drew my first breath. It's freaking insanity.
Yeah, and that is precisely why I personally feel that millennials, aside from being of age to be in most offices, are extraordinarily important to be in office, because in a lot of ways we act as a bridge. When you were talking about when I was born in '85, we had these ribbons. Now we have CDs. You pretty much experience.
We don't even have CDs anymore. They're already obsolete, man.
Exactly, but you've experienced a change from an analog to a digital world, whereas the generations before us only really knew analog and grew up on that and were ingrained on that culture and are having, of course, trouble understanding technology. Whereas generations after us, the generation Z, the people born in the I generation, only understand a digital world. And we kind of serve as that bridge for those generations. When people talk about bridging the gap, I think we're in the prime area to do so, generationally speaking.
Well, I mean, first we have to stop fighting with the boomers, before we can start bridging that gap. Well, and they're not making it easy. I mean, they're fighting harder than Abe Simpson was when he went into the home on The Simpsons. I am old enough to remember when they put Abraham Simpson into the home on The Simpsons. That's how freaking old I am. I guarantee both of you thought he was already in there, but he wasn't.
The best way to beat someone is to turn them to your side.
And that's what we did fervently in Iowa. All over the place, we were doing that.
Yeah.
And it's important to have those. Like, I know some of these conversations. We all know some of these conversations can be extraordinarily difficult, but those those changes and bringing people to our side won't happen if those conversations don't happen at all in the first place. And yeah, it's tough, but you know what? The best way for this democracy to work is for people to participate and just think harder.
Yep. And I agree.
More millennials in office. I'm totally for that.
Yeah. Speaking of more millennials in office, Jason, you just phone banked for somebody running for Congress. Tell us about it.
Oh, it was really cool. I only made like 6 calls for Donna out of Texas, before I hopped off because I didn't get the information until late. But it was like so cool. Like my 4th or 5th call in, I got this like cute little girl who like answered her mom's phone and said, "Does she like puppies?" And I'm like, "Yeah, she's totally in support of puppies." And then the mom, was like, "Stop talking to my kid," and hung up on me. But whatever.
All right. So yes, tell us if somebody wants to volunteer for this this Andrew Yang endorsed candidate out in Texas.
You go to Blair and Donald's website and just sign up. I signed up for both of them today, and hopefully I'll get some information from Blair and get to make calls to her because that little volunteer leaderboard in Iowa, I was like #1 every fucking week on phone calls, and I was also #1 on doors every fucking weekend.
Yeah, and when you injured your back, you really put in those phone calls for sure.
Yeah, but no, even before I injured my back, I was still #1 on the phone bank list and door knocking list. So, I'm hoping to be an asset to these people. Like if they'll keep in contact with me and let me do it. So, James Ellis just threw on the whole did go vote for Donna stuff. So yeah, share that out and everything, and
and I will reemphasize. Now, while we're still talking about Harris and the VP pick, I will reemphasize this because it always needs reemphasizing. You are not just voting for a president and vice president. You are not
voting for an entire administration.
You are also voting for an entire cabinet, which has tremendous influence all over our everyday way of life. You are also voting for potentially upwards of 3 Supreme Court justices that, given the way that they're nominated these days, can have tremendous ramifications for literally a generation to come. Notorious RGB, stay fit, girl, always stay healthy, keep on kicking ass, but
she's still up there doing Pilates.
Yeah, but there's a lot of importance going into this election that people aren't realizing, and I am very concerned of those that are feeling as complacent as they were 4 years ago and just not participating.
Yeah. Participation is a big goal. I don't know how many people like you, Andrew Yang, did the Zoom call last night, but Pierce and I were both on it. And, he said he wants to see at least 3 Yang Gang members in Congress. That's his goal. I think we can, probably get 4 or 5 in, possibly, because I think we have a total of still 6 or 7 up running.
Yeah, I think we have a good chance. We have a very good chance with David Kim over here. The name recognition is going up. We're putting in a lot of work. And he's a no-brainer once you especially compare that the incumbent is corporate funded, 98+% of his fundraising is, compared to all the grassroots that David is pulling. But and one last topic on the Supreme Court. I still remember the time John Roberts made that very rare public comment about Trump trying to politicize the courts and making comments about that, saying that there's no Obama judges, there's no Bush judges, there's just people I forgot the wording of it, but I think it was extraordinary one that he made a comment like that. And I think he's done a good job trying to keep the court itself as important as nonpartisan as possible, essentially.
I think with the Supreme Court, you definitely need to somehow get a president who's 4 term limits, because lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court just seems, it's one of those things. The Supreme Court should be changed as often as we change generational, not generationally, but as often as we change as a nation. it should evolve with us, not, be stuck in like, what.
That was one of Andrew Yang's, I've got a lot of favorite policies of his, but one that I really liked that I hadn't thought of even before Andrew Yang.
Oh, he had it on the Supreme Court as well?
Right. Yeah. The idea to have your Supreme Court appointment be 18 years. So that way each presidential term, you're nominating 2 different justices.
True.
And I was thinking this just sounds great. Honestly, this sounds great.
Because we tend to have this thing as far as, presidents go, that it's, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. The nation seems to evolve that way. And, that's just the way it seems to go for our presidential picks and stuff. So, that would keep a fair balance on both left and right. And,
and also get newer blood. And
yeah, we definitely need new blood, although RBG, forever.
I hold every single person on the Supreme Court in fairly high esteem.
Not Brett Kavanaugh.
I was about to say Brett Kavanaugh being at the bottom of that. He does not have the temperament to be a Supreme Court judge. But anybody there is quite intelligent. Even Kavanaugh is quite intelligent. Again, he doesn't have the temperament for it though.
Or the restraint from not raping people. But
I recall.
I just sidestepped that one, man. The courts. I don't know. That's quite frankly, that's a tough one to opine on, without really diving into it. You got to recognize there's a lot of incentive for that to go both ways, and I'm just not nearly informed enough to have come to a proper decision on any veracity of those claims.
Yeah, and that's a good point you bring up here. It reminds me of, and I know you'll have some thoughts on this, Jason, but I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast with Brett Weinstein, they were talking about the George Floyd incident, and the rest of the opinion that he personally hopes that the officers are convicted, because of course we can all see the social ramifications if they're not. But he hopes that they are. But the important thing is that they have to be, they deserve their due process just like everyone else in this country. And I think that's fundamentally important. And I don't know if you guys saw the leaked body cam footage about a week ago that came out from one of the officers that was involved. But it's there in there, and it showed that George Floyd was saying, I can't breathe before he was even taken down physically. And that's, to me, that's a good thing that they at least try to charge him with third-degree murder instead of first-degree murder, because it's always difficult to prove that it was an intent to kill. But I think it's fundamentally important that we uphold what fundamentally makes this country what it is, and that is due process under law for every single person. Because I think having a sacrificial lamb while it can satisfy some people, it can dismantle a lot of our fundamentals as a country, personally.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the leaked body cam footage, and my opinion hasn't really wavered on the whole thing. It's just they need to be trained better. Cop police need to be trained better. You could literally see that he was going through, he was mentally breaking for whatever reason, and instead of trying to legitimately help him, they just still put him on the ground and put their knee in the back of his neck. They should have just training and realizing that he was having a mental break and that he wasn't dangerous, but maybe the whole trying to force him into the back of the car wasn't the best at the point. Maybe sitting him down up against the wall, maybe you got 3 cops around him. Maybe one of them goes, gets him a bottle of water and helps him relax. They coach him, they talk to him, just, more training and diffusing the information. I mean, that's what I saw is they were still trying to be to a point, more aggressive, too aggressive to a point. You have to be able to scale it back and forth, I mean, at times, yes, use force because you're a police officer, but at the time, sometimes you have to realize someone's breaking, and you have to scale it back, and you have to become more of a counselor than an enforcement officer. And I think more training would still, even after seeing the leaked body cam footage, more training.
Yes.
Like they need to be able to. They need to be trained to recognize stuff like that. They need
People
to realize that it's not resisting. He's just having a mental break. He has something chemically is wrong in his head at that moment, and they need to help him. Versus,
people always
trying to apply so much force.
training as the solution. Training, more training, more training, more training. Anybody in the military can tell you that it is very possible to get too much training. So it's less of actually more training and more of the right training. But even more important than the right training, in all honesty, is going to be attracting the right people.
Yeah.
You have to be able to filter out the bad people, and you have to be able to attract the good ones. And police departments in a lot of places do not pay enough to attract the right people. They really don't, which means that people that are willing to do that job are attracted to the intangibles of the job, such as the power that it gives over you. And those are actually the people that you don't want to have as police. It's a large issue, thank you.
We've had that discussion before. I mean, and we're all in agreement. We need better officers. Officers need more pay. We need, we need different types of officers. We need, it's just like the leaked body cam footage just proved like every point that was made by like all four of us, at the time we were having the conversation. That's all it did for me is solidify the fact that, we were right. It didn't change any of the facts of anything. And
you were right, when you point out that sometimes someone is just having a stressful day, and that really what they don't need is escalation. Like someone could be having an autistic spaz out, right. I know you've got.
I mean, how many times in Iowa did you help me through those? Like how many times did Marco help me through those?
Or any number of other things that really don't need escalation. It's important to remember to understand this problem that police aren't this monolith. In fact, we're talking about police from literally thousands of different departments. There is no federal way that you can, from the federal perspective, fix police brutality. Can't happen. The federal government does not have the authority to do that. And quite frankly, you don't want them to. Because any federal government authority that could fix that is going to come with other problems that historically, if we're to look at other nations, tend to, be worse.
The last thing we want is to regulate the National Guard into freaking, writing parking tickets. I mean, that's the last thing we want. But it's like what we've been also preaching for the longest time. Local fucking government matters. Local elections matter. You want to change the police force in your town, get a better mayor, get better city council, get better, district attorneys, get better everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Even school board for the hell of it, because, they mold the minds of people that grow up to be police officers in that community and so on. So,
yeah, and that's an important point. Like, you would want, for those that want police reform as a top issue on the ticket this year, you'd want for whoever the president is to want to fight for those things. But the reality is that kind of change is more granular and more down a ticket than you'd expect. Like, if you just research lightly, you find that, counties that have sheriffs those are elected officials. You quite literally elect these sheriffs into their positions. And then police chiefs on major municipalities like Los Angeles, those are, I believe, nominated by the city council. And then, something has to do with the council, but the council members and the mayor, both elected officials. Like, you can complain about all these things you want, but until you educate yourself as to how these changes can be properly made, like kind of how we learned with Ryan last week with housing, like, go to these city council meetings and express your concerns, etc. Like, once you have to learn how the system works if you want to change it, simply put.
Yeah, I totally agree. So other things that have happened, Lebanon.
The hell?
Everybody saw that explosion.
Yes. I think they projected it was like 1/3 of the TNT magnitude of one of the atomic bombs in World War II in Japan, which is already, just by looking at the video, you can tell that it was catastrophic.
I haven't seen any follow-ups on it since the day it happened. So I don't know what the hell exploded. but it reminds me of that file that I found on my dad's video, like computer one time of like test things that happened at work, because but it was like, holy shit, was that a delayed like freaking explosion from a missile strike?
From my understanding, that flammable material was actually being transported from one place to another, and that port was basically on the way there. And when they inspected it, again, this is from my reading of it last week, the ship was not fit to properly sail, from what I understand. So they stored it there and essentially forgot about it, from what I read. And it was there for 4 or 5 years before the incident occurred. And that, of course, is, in my opinion, a tremendous oversight on whichever government body that is in charge of looking over those things. But yeah, it's just, if you look at the before and after satellite images, it's just heartbreaking. And this already exacerbated a huge financial and food crisis that this country was facing beforehand. I believe a lot of the grain storage was in the vicinity and was affected by the blast and basically destroyed. As an update as to what happened since then, Macron visited a few days after. For those that don't know, France and Lebanon share a large historic close relationship given the previous colonization. So Macron was there. He called for assistance internationally. Many nations have pledged whatever help they can give. For those that aren't aware, the Prime Minister stepped down a couple of days ago, less than a week after the explosion. I believe on Monday.
Yeah, not just him.
Yeah,
practically the whole administration's resigning. It looks like almost at this point.
Well, I mean, was the explosion like a call of the administration's oversight, or is it just because they're like, this is too fucked to fix?
No, it was a government screw up.
Okay.
So the port itself actually said, "Hey, we've got this dangerous material that's being stored here. Can you move it?" Because the port didn't have, I guess, the funding to move such a large quantity of stuff, and the government just slept on it. They just completely slept on it and ignored it. And who knows how strong the port pushed for it, but it was there for years, I think. And eventually something happened, and it killed however many people it killed, over 100, I think, and exploded. And
the most shocking was the video of the guy that was like streaming like the initial like smoke and everything, Facebook Live, and then like the second explosion like happened, and you just like see his phone get lifted up, and you see him go before it cuts to black. Like when he hit the ground, it was like this horrifying. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot of.
I thought it was like when I first saw the video, I'm like, that's like a delayed payload explosion from a missile strike or something. It was just scary as shit.
Yeah, and the first, if you're, God forbid, enamored in a situation like that, obviously go the opposite direction of that. But if your eyes see a massive explosion like that happening, the first thing you do is get down and cover your ears, because of course light travels faster than sound, and seconds, or a lot of seconds after the blast, you are going to get not just knocked back, but your ears can just get absolutely destroyed.
Which will then also disorient you.
Yeah.
What does it say though about like culture and everything that you see like a flash of, you see danger, and your first thing is like, I'm going to Facebook Live this. I mean, fundamentally,
there's
a side
of it that's awareness, so people know that something is happening. I'm sure if you were in the immediate vicinity, you don't need someone's IG live feed to know that there's a giant fire going on. But it's just, one of them is just social awareness about what's happening. Historic documentation, if you want to go that far. If this were to happen, we wouldn't have a third of as many videos as this happened 10 years ago, or like when live feeding was much more newer. So, I'm sure a lot of scientists can learn a lot from the explosion just by different angles they got from it. Maybe, it's also evidence that, maybe one camera caught something that the others couldn't because of the angle. You know what I mean? And of course, there is human nature to want to capture these moments, but for the most part, some people are just drawn to just fascination. Like, it's just like, goodness, like, it's kind of like, not to dissuade, not to diminish it, but like, when 9/11 happened, people were just in awe, like that this was happening right in front of them.
Yeah, for sure. Someone, one sec, I just looked up. So I'll butcher that name. Shazarale said, did they ever figure out the chemical released into the air? People were saying not to breathe the air. So I hadn't heard of that. So I just looked up while John Marco was talking. Best I can find is really what looks like developing reports that weren't really followed up on. So probably it was more minor and temporary and like blown away, if there was anything in the first place. What I got is the US NBC statement. There are reports of toxic gases released in the explosion, so all in the area should stay indoors and wear masks if available. And that was on August 5th. There doesn't really seem to be that much follow-up, and this is like a very, very cursory glance. I wouldn't even call it research, but I think it was likely just initial confusing reporting immediately after the fact. You see that a lot for any large event that happens that gets a lot of attention. You'll see a lot of, incomplete reports that basically don't actually point to anything.
Yeah, I obviously there's a health regard and health issue there, but I always try to, I understand that some things are breaking news, but if something is breaking, I try to let it sit for a few days and then properly catch up on the news, so to speak, because there's a lot of incomplete information that can lead to a lot of other problems if you're not careful. Because a developing story is exactly what it is. It's a developing story. It means that not all the details are there. We are, to the best of our news ability, trying to determine what happened and what could have caused an event to happen. But you won't know for sure until literally like the history books are written as to what exactly happened.
A great case in point of how this goes sideways. You remember the Boston Marathon bombing? You might have heard how Reddit basically lynch mobbed in an attempt to investigate and discover who the bomber was. They fingered this one just random kid that totally had nothing to do with it. Even worse, he'd already killed himself. So the death threats that the Reddit lynch mob were being sent to his parents. So 2 days after this kid killed himself, all of his parents and sister are just getting hundreds of death threats and messages of hate and people lashing out. I
the mental
issues that would be absolutely devastating.
Yeah, just the mental impact of that. I couldn't even fathom.
Yeah, and go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was gonna say, and people criticize me all the time for not being able to use Reddit. I can't even figure out how to make a damn account on that site, but I'm so grateful I can't.
The internet can be extraordinarily dangerous. I understand the want to help, especially at a crisis like that. But and this ties into something else I want to just bring up out of nowhere because it reminded me of it. But we have professional authorities that are there. These investigations are kept on a tightrope until they feel like evidence is factual enough to report on them for a reason. Because you don't want these things to happen where the wrong person gets their finger pointed at them and their lives are potentially ruined, which is why I always feel that there should be some criteria where, especially court hearings and people charged with crimes, are mostly left anonymous until the verdict is reached. Because there has been countless cases where people are charged with something, and just because of the PR fallout of that, even though they could be completely innocent, their lives are basically destroyed. Sure. And that's kind of, in my opinion, society turning a blind eye to due process.
Yeah.
And that's been held along by sites like TMZ and all those other tabloid mags and stuff, that always looking for the dirt. And people where do they get their information? And then they go out and they look for the same information on people that they know or people that they hate, and so it's it became from just a celebrity thing to just an everyday person thing. And with the internet, anyone can find anything. And so yes, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
The way things just work and snowball and go to hell.
Yeah. We got to be, honestly, just be nicer to each other, especially as a whole, we tend to be a lot nicer to people in person than we are online. It's as if they're not real people when they're online. And that's That's
Yeah.
really
I think it's there's good and bad too, because I think evolutionary, like, you know, it can kind of tie down to fight or flight if you think about it. Like once you're confronting someone and having an argument, you might feel threatened, or they might feel like they're threatened and might react physically, which is, you know, understandably evolutionary. But, you know, I think one of Facebook aside, I think Reddit would be the best example. Like, if you're familiar with Reddit, like you're talking to a username. There's no profile photo. There's no history of, like, you know, who they are as a person, except for their Reddit history, of course. But I think that slight sense of anonymity kind of leads to a more open discussion in certain cases. Because when we're not aware of what kind of background the other person has, like, you might be having a good, respectful conversation with someone that you wouldn't normally talk to in real life because of some previous factors that you always, you know, preset your mind to. But and that's why, like, this is a bit more of a stretch. But sometimes I might feel like it'd be a good idea that on resumes, like, we remove, like, just people's names from it in general. Like, you know, just these are the credentials of this person. Here's some basic background on them. But, you know, don't think about what their name is. Like, I think there's a lot of science to, I guess, a name that I'd want to explore if I have time one day. But I think if you just set aside some of these and look at these credentials and then determine if you want to interview them based on what you're seeing on the resume, that could be beneficial in many scenarios, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, anyway, I don't know what we've shifted around a bit.
Yeah, so let's talk about something non-political for once. Pierce, have you gotten that video game I told you about?
City Skyline, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Asshole.
I had a
Haven't
feeling.
seen WAP yet.
No, I haven't, but hold up.
You have to watch WAP.
I have to watch what?
WAP.
And not to plug, since we're talking about WAP, my friend Kat, who's actually in the chat, did a fantastic article on the piece on the Miami Times.
Like, I think we should, like, you know, have Pierce pull up YouTube and watch WAP and just, like, watch his reactions to it.
Okay, are you saying WAP? Whiskey Alpha?
WAP. WAP.
UAP, WAP. Yeah. Never heard of this.
I put a
We're about to break Pierce.
I guess I put in an age filter, possibly warning.
Cardi B? Is that it?
If you have little kids at home.
I highly doubt any little children are watching us right now.
I'm seeing 2 different music videos, both with many million views. But so hold on, you actually want me to play this right now?
Like, you don't have to, like, actually stream it, but just, like, watch it.
It seems like somebody's supportive of it. So yeah, sure, why not? You know, I'll put it on the screen.
Give it
So,
40 seconds. Just give us 40 seconds.
adding it to the screen here.
Kat right now is very excited for this. Like, she sent the hard eye emojis.
Look at that frame rate.
Yeah, that's some really choppy, like, you need better Wi-Fi, Pierce.
Pass.
I said certified free, 7 days a week, wet and gushy, make that pull-out game ring. Yeah, you chillin' with some wet and gushy. Bring a bucket in a mouth, put this wet and gushy. Give me everything you got, put this wet and gushy. Beat it up, baby, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this cookie right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top, I wanna ride. I do a giggle, I'm gonna ride. Look at my mouth, look at my thighs. Sweater is wet, come take a dive. Tie me up like I'm so.
All right, so I think I got the idea how it's gonna go. I bet people tuning into the stream didn't expect that's what they were gonna hear.
Yeah, and there's a good amount of social commentary on this. I link the piece that my friend Kat wrote on our private chat if you guys want to read it later.
No, actually, let's, Pierce, do that Sherry thingy where you put the link up there for everyone. That way they can see it all. Kat, you know, just
Anybody can Google that.
But also, freaking he criticized me for not being humanity force towards Ben Shapiro last night. Now, just imagine him.
Humanity first to Ben Shapiro's wife, dude.
Well, yeah, but he said that he said that. Well, I would not accept wet ass P word from my wife because it would mean it was diseased. He doesn't understand how female lubrication works.
I literally don't know what you're talking about, but I'm not really interested in the drama. I was just pointing out that you said something bad about his wife.
I didn't say anything bad about his wife.
It's pretty
I
rude.
just said it was probably calloused over since he liked it so dry.
Yes, but I think for those that are unfamiliar with the specific context of the conversation, it can come off as negative.
True.
Even without context, you know, that in the image that you retweeted, there's no reference to his wife. You're bringing in someone that is not involved. You don't like Ben Shapiro. I get that. All right, you don't like Ben Shapiro. I actually have a lot of agreement with a lot of Ben Shapiro's perspectives. I think the dude's a dick, you know. But I think, quite frankly, he's a worthwhile voice to listen to. And if you want a well-rounded opinion to develop on things, you want to take his opinion as well as other people. He's a very good, sounding board's not the right word, but
I would not let him give my children sex talk based on his knowledge of vaginas.
Well, that aside, I would agree that that's a point.
You don't like Ben Shapiro, all right? But then you attack his wife. All right, that's not cool. There is nothing humanity for.
I made a comment about the way he likes his wife.
Yeah, don't double down, man. Just don't. So I like you, Jason, but I don't follow every single thing you do. But I just saw that thing, and it's worth trying to be that goodness in the world. Be nice to people, including the internet strangers and internet strangers' family. It's simple as it gets, really.
I'm very pro vagina, and I just,
I think that's a good perspective to have. Speaking of, all right, so you had me watch that minute of Cardi B, whatever. Yeah. You didn't even ask my opinion on it.
I just wanted to see your face.
Just wanted to see my face. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
It
was like a reaction video because I know that's not your style. You don't get down with Cardi B. So.
Hey, you're right. That's not my style of music. But that being said, I ain't gonna fault anyone that doesn't enjoy that. Different strokes for different folks. I will certainly say someone that's not actually seen who Cardi B is before. She certainly knows some of her assets and likes to flaunt them. There's nothing wrong with that. I can appreciate the female figure all day. There is nothing wrong with it.
Okay, we saw Chris's reaction.
But yeah,
musician. He hasn't even said anything about it.
All right, yeah. So what completely?
Oh, Cat. Oh, Cat. I love Cat. Cat, you're my new favorite person. I'm trying to show it.
Yep.
Ben Shapiro should be nicer to pussy.
I don't know if he's not nice to it, but I agree. As a rule,
you have to listen to his podcast on the entire WAP video.
Men watching this podcast, the lesson from Pierce Walker: be nice to the pussy. All right.
I think we should have Kat on as a guest. Is she available next week?
Oh, I'm sure she is. She's quite the personality.
Kat, you want to come on next week? I'm actually expecting her to come on lifetime.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a delay here.
Open invitation.
I think that's a reply to Pierce's statements about Pierce's public service announcement. But yeah, while we're gonna answer cities, yeah, she's down. Awesome. This is gonna be both of my worlds colliding because she's an old music friend from 10 years ago. We're of course, I'm thankful we're close right now, but it'll be a good combining of the words.
I'm all for combining of the worlds, like the DC multiverse and the way they brought everything, together.
Worlds colliding is the proper phrase, I guess. Jesus, combining of the worlds.
We're stimulating the bringing us together of John Marco's multiverses right now, and I like that.
But yeah, again, City Skylines. Here, so for those that don't know, City Skyline is like The Sims for city building, but better. Ever since it's the last Sims city building.
Pierce, it's like crack. I had to delete it, man. It's like crack.
Yeah.
And I would. Oh, that's right. I got you on it for a little bit too.
Yeah, I was on it for about a fucking solid week. I went for like 36 hours straight on the game. Fuck you.
So basically, it's a city building game where you're a city planner. You zone out commercial, residential, industrial areas. You manage the utilities. My personal favorite part of it is managing the traffic and public transportation.
So in other words, people that enjoy, societal problems and fixing them might enjoy this game, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, I am
Ever
extraordinarily.
wanted to be a bus driver?
I am particularly anal about an effective public transportation system. Like if there is one too many buses and it's bringing out the flow, like I would take that bus out of the system.
Cool.
Like if you ever want to be a bus driver, if you've ever wanted to make water flow, cityscape.
I actually, it is entirely within the genre of games that I will enjoy. So
Oh yeah, that's why I recommended it.
Not gonna lie.
When I knew you were a Total War person, like, oh, he'll fucking love this shit, then.
Yep.
I'm not even a gamer, and I enjoyed it. So I enjoyed it too much. I had to delete it because it was free on the PlayStation Store at the time. So
Yeah, so you can't really complain because you definitely got your money's worth.
yeah, it was free, and I enjoyed it, too much, and I had to delete it. That way I could, give 2K the proper amount of time and everything that it needed. Get my player built up. Built this cool little coalition of Jewish players. So you got a bunch of white dudes with afros running down the court dunking basketballs. It's awesome.
Why not, man?
It's about the only time we're ever going to be good at sports. That's false. We're really fantastic at baseball. Herman Killebrew, Ryan Braun, Sandy Koufax. Just to name a few. So yeah.
Have any of you heard Yang's podcast with Scott Galloway recently about public education?
The last one I heard was Joseph Gordon-Levitt's.
I'm midway through that one, and that was really good too. But the one with Scott Galloway is very worth watching. Of course, it talks about all of the issues we're familiar with the school system and Andrew's platform. But yeah, there is a lot the public education system that needs to be fixed, as well as the private ones too. Like he tied back to his Harvard tax proposal, where if your endowment is bigger than some GDP of some European countries, you have to make sure that you're scaling properly to be a public good. And Scott Galloway worded something very well that I'll repeat, where we have these massive educational institutions these days that are oh yeah, we turned away 90% of the applicants. That's tantamount to someone that's about public housing that's saying they turned away 90% of people from a place to live. Education should be a public good that helps raise the floor for everyone. And when you're trying to be competitive about it, it kind of made me remind myself when I first went to college in orientation. Like I said, yeah, of the 20% that accepted, only you final 6% took the offer and came here. I'm that was, I understand that was supposed to make us feel special. But, at the same time, there's a good majority of people that would have loved to have come here that didn't have that opportunity. Why is education 2.5 times more expensive, as Angela loves to say, not 2.5 times better? Why? How can we rework this so that it is more accessible to people? And at first, I was on board with the whole free college plan back when I was a Bernie volunteer in 2016. But then when someone, I forgot who, that I think it was actually the owner of the news split I went to here. He pointed out you have to have some teeth in the game, because I can understand preschooling and elementary school can your development as a person is much different from your development as an 18-year-old. Once you're 18, you kind of have a better grasp of how the world should work, and at that point you kind of should have more of a freedom in terms of how you want to direct that. Do you want to go to a trade school, or do you want to go to a public university and get a bachelor's degree in whatever you'd like to? Especially once you're 18, you're considered an adult, and parents could cut you off if they want to. You have to have some skin in the game. If you're going to college for free, and this isn't costing anything. This isn't costing my family anything.
Then it kind of just becomes extra high school, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the argument that I've been making forever. Everyone's hey, yeah, college should be free. I'm But high school's free. It used to not be free, and look how dumb high school kids are. Like, it's got to be an investment at some point. Should college tuition, come down in price? Hell fucking yes. College is way too fucking expensive. There needs to be a cap on that shit.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a private university. I don't care if it's a public university, state, whatever. Prices can come the fuck down.
So that's what means.
But it shouldn't be free.
Yeah. So
because, high school kids are dumb fucks, and we want to extend that dumb fuckery 4 years. Fuck that.
yeah. So I agree that college shouldn't be free. And in fact, actually, I'm the much more conservative member between us three, right? So of course I agree that
I'm the most liberal member of us.
But I want to offer a different just perspective on perhaps why it should be, even though I conclude that it shouldn't be free. College is different from high school in the sense that you, the student, are choosing what to study, and preferably you're also choosing where to study. But more importantly, you're choosing the topic, and that value of choice that you're opting in as opposed to just being mandatory. You're opting in, you're opting into the topic, you're opting into the instruction in the first place. That goes a long way towards the student choosing to get value out of it. Now, obviously that's not enough. All right. I think we've all met some spoiled kid that went to college on their parents' dime and just partied the whole time and wasted every cent of their parents' money on their college experience and maybe didn't even graduate, right? Like, we've met a lot of people. I'm sure you can think of somebody that fits that description, right? So it's far from a solution. And ultimately, I agree that college should not be free. Very much should not be free. I think that is perverted in many, many different ways.
Here's my rebuttal to the whole free thing. With the whole thought process of choice. The first 2 years of college, you don't get to choose. They're trying to catch you up from the void of education that you got out of high school with, because high school didn't properly prepare you. So basically the first 2 years of college, you're learning what you should have already fucking learned in high school to a degree.
You're just going to the wrong college, dude. and the wrong
private university that was pretty advanced. So
my college experience, the first 2 years though, was learning. I mean, I went for a technical degree, so I guess that's a different experience.
Yeah.
But,
I've actually, none of my degrees are really that important. So,
but on the flip side, there's fundamentally absolutely.
By the way, I'm getting 2 more degrees. I will have them by this fall. I signed up for the credit hour classes, so I'll have a history degree and an English degree by the end of the year.
Still the history.
Yeah, but regardless of the degree, though, there's fundamentally nothing wrong with having a well-educated society.
Right.
People can feel that those core classes you get the first 2 years are just I'm never going to use history. No, it's not just about the topics that you're being required to learn to get into your majors program. It's about learning how to think. And those classes are prerequisites for a reason, because they teach you how to think for the major that you want, even though it might not be topical. But on top of that, knowledge is absolute power. Understanding, even if it's just a history class, can have a tremendous effect on someone depending on how they want to, take on that class. You can learn a lot from it. And you can even have changes to what you want to study. And I think it's important for diversity too. Understanding history, in particular, in different cultures, helps bridge a lot of gaps in terms of our cultural divide in general.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Education as a whole is one of the best things that society can invest in, particularly democracy, because democracy is built on an educated populace.
That's also something I think that we're lacking as far as public education and even through college goes. It's a basic understanding of how democracy works.
Yeah, we should.
I think we need better political. I think we need to start introducing political science in high school, to be honest.
Well, for starters, we should stop tying funding to property taxes.
True.
So that way, because right now our public school system is overwhelmingly funded by property taxes, which means that the richer neighborhoods are going to have more funding, and therefore they're going to have better schools.
Yes.
And, if you live in that nice neighborhood, that's nice for you. And if you don't live in that nice neighborhood, that's not nice for you, right?
Yeah. That's actually an example topic that was part of my this past week's online class I'm taking on constitutional foundations, talking about equality and freedom. Like, I can understand how public school funding is done at a local level, and that kind of goes against and butts heads with the equality aspect of our political ideological culture, because we want to have everyone an equal opportunity to succeed, and that's completely understandable. But at the same time, on the flip side, you have the whole freedom aspect. I want the freedom of being in this particular neighborhood because I can afford it and I worked hard for it. And it was just interesting that you mentioned that, because it made me think about the discussion we just had in class. Like, there's a lot of tenets of our political culture, going back to the founding of this country, that are kind of always at odds and tugging and pulling. And that, so from partisanship, and a common example is, of course, healthcare. Like, Western democracies have healthcare, but compared to America, like, it's not as easily accessible to others. But with the same argument with public schooling, like, sure, I think our physical and mental well-being, of course, is important, and everyone should have that safeguard as a freedom of life, or as a right to life in general. But I would also want, like, the freedom to choose if I want healthcare or not. Like, there's a lot of things that this country is always facing in its own ways.
Yeah.
The equal, like, yeah, like, I'm going back to, like, what Pierce said about, like, school funding shouldn't be, like, subject to property taxes, because, like, if you think about it, like, even in the poor neighborhoods, the majority of their money, like, from the property taxes that are going to the schools, they're going to feed their kids and everything, make sure that they have a proper breakfast and a proper lunch through the meal programs, is where the majority of the funding is going there, because, like, it's a poorer neighborhood. So it's like, yeah, the whole, like, making sure everything's more equally funded just makes it just kind of sticks with me, and, like, untying it from property taxes just, like, stuck with me. I don't know why, because you start thinking of the implications of it and everything, and, like, where does the money go to the poorer schools, and you're like, it's going to feed the students. I mean, why the hell can't we make sure everyone in America is, like, fed? Like, is that so hard? We're, like, literally the second or third richest country in the world.
I'm not aware of a single public school in the country that doesn't offer free or subsidized meals for low-income children.
Yeah.
I think, like, every state probably has that program, and if it's not at the state level, then it's at a lower level. And I'm sure out of the many schools that exist, someone can tell me one that doesn't. But the best.
I know every school has that program, but, like, with the property tax, like, if you made, like, even a federal mills program for schools or something, as far as that, like, if it was, like, on a federal level and, like, even that was funded, more money in the poor neighborhoods would actually go to education versus having to feed the children,
Well, right. Yeah, you're making a good point in that, poor schools have this extra expense.
Yeah.
Kids, that say wealthier schools don't.
They have less money and they have to feed the same number of kids, if not more kids.
Right.
Than the richer schools. So
it's a very real problem. Unfortunately, although I just listed, one solution well, it's not a solution, but it's a huge answer. A lot of progress in that front. Unfortunately, giving the government more money does not always mean progress. So, because guess what? The government is made out of people, and people are very fallible. And frequently, people that survive in government would not have survived in private sector. It's a general axiom. Unfortunately, it's just why you have all the tropes of, hey, the government's inefficient, and it's because, like, well, yeah, it frequently is. It depends who's running the show, right? So lots of school administrations are frankly terrible. Andrew Yang once pointed out on the show, is like, if you give a school a bunch of money, the last thing that they're going to do is spend it on their teachers. But we all know that a good teacher is worth their weight in gold, right? So teachers as a whole should get paid more. And if we pay them more, we'll attract better talent, right? So
subject to teachers. William Cotero, my freaking 10th grade English teacher. I love you. Thank you for introducing me to writing as a way to, be awesome and everything. Love you so much. You've defined my entire fucking life. I doubt you'll ever hear this, but William Cotero, you fucking rock. Los Alamos High School for life. I don't know. Do we have a game yet in Los Alamos? So,
And paying teachers more in general is just so important. Like, these are people that you are entrusting the time of your child to for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Like, you want to make sure that they are being taken care of properly and they're getting as proper education as possible. And if you're not treating those in the front lines with the proper compensation they deserve to do a great job and not literally spend their own money to bring supplies to school, that is a huge shortcoming of our society in every regard.
I think there should be a rule that a teacher should be paid enough to live in the same neighborhood that she's teaching in, at the bare minimum. You know, like, because you have a lot of teachers who are like living far away from the school where it's like more economically friendly for them to live, and they're like commuter teachers who come in and like they're losing time that they could be lesson planning and stuff like that. It's like when I was helping Max write policy for his state run and everything. Teacher pay like needs to be tremendously up so they can actually afford to live where they teach. You know, and because it just like makes sense that if they're a member of that actual community and there's someone you run into the grocery store at and everything like that, you're more invested, you're more connected, and it just builds for a better educational experience in a way.
Yeah, as a rule, teachers need to get paid more.
Yeah.
And teachers actually have a lot more days off than a lot of people recognize. It's not a bad job if you're if you're someone that thinks about being a teacher. You work hard if you're doing the job right, but you get a lot of days off for what it's worth.
Well,
it's a perk of the job.
Well, you got to remember they're not necessarily days off because they're only paid for like what 10 or 9 months out of the year. Like the summer months, they don't get paid for those unless they take part of it.
Your employers, you are correct that a lot of school districts will hire you for like 9-month contracts or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, they're not getting paid for time. So I mean, it's they got to get some of that shit. So
yeah. I could be mistaken.
The majority of schools pay you throughout the year.
Yeah, but I could be mistaken though. I think depending on the state, teachers have the option of either getting the school year's salary either through throughout the time of the actual school year or evenly throughout the year itself. But that's just more of a personal financial management decision, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. In the military, we had the option of getting paid every 2 weeks or every month. And of course, everybody chose every 2 weeks because then you get the money faster. Yeah.
And the joy. This is a side note. Getting paid every 2 weeks is vastly better than getting paid twice a month, because there are 24 payments if you do it twice a month, but there's 26 payments if you do it once every 2 weeks because there's a couple of extra days every year.
No, I think everyone should be paid every week.
If you do your budget, because I had this same experience when I had a corporate job, I got paid every 2 weeks. If you do your budgeting on a month-to-month basis, there will be 2 months every year where you will magically get a third full paycheck, and it feels awesome.
Life hacks right there.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think we need to like just pay everyone weekly.
Well, some people do. I kid you not, Walmart. I don't know if they rolled this out to their national program yet or not, but Walmart is now largely paying their employees weekly. They use this new app called, what is it, Gusto? I think Gusto.
Yeah.
So it might be a different one. I don't know.
that's the same app we use for our payroll and the campaign tiers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they whatever program it is, it might not be Gusto, it might be something else.
It's Gusto.
They were using. I remember reading about this like a year ago, about how they effectively they chose to pay their employees weekly, and the employees, of course, were like, "This is great." So, if you already worked at Walmart, then you were happy about the improvement.
Yeah. A lot of the reason though why they pay biweekly or or twice a month or throughout the week is so the employer can keep the money in the bank account longer and accrue interest and make extra money. Because when you're like looking at fundage like that large, that extra 10, 15 cents that you're going to earn from that, like 3 or 4% on that, starts to add up a lot quicker. Like when you're talking about large amounts for like bigger companies and stuff, which is why a lot of companies, tend to pay on a biweekly or twice monthly schedule.
Yes.
So because they like that, extra kicker of, the interest on their payroll.
Yep. Yeah. How do you think Venmo makes money?
Yeah.
They're all just loaning your money out, quite literally. So anyway, I think it's been a good, cool just talk again with the three of us.
Oh yeah,
It's been
we miss you, Rob.
Yeah, we do miss you, Rob.
coming back next week. He'll be a trained like first aid responder now. I don't remember what term it is.
Yeah, he'll be an EMT.
But Rob Chen is coming back next week for everybody watching this. Our boy will be back.
So we get to introduce Rob to Kat next week, and we'll have our first 5-person podcast.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. It'll be a good time. All right. Well, any final words?
Ben Shapiro, be nicer to the pussy.
In general, yeah.
Be nice.
Everyone be nicer to the pussy.
Hashtag nicer to the pussy.
Treat the pussy with respect.
All right. Everybody stay healthy, wealthy, and wise.